Diaries.
My dear fright seekers, sometimes the skeletons in our closets open doors we never knew existed. So, if you dare to unlock more bone-chilling tales, hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to never miss a ghastly story. Up next, a tale of walls that whisper and paintings that watch. The Last Tenant. Alice stepped into her new apartment, a faint smile playing on her lips as she surveyed the sun-drenched living room. The space was infused with a sense of history, its walls whispering tales of bygone eras. She could almost hear the echo of laughter and the remnants of dreams that once filled these rooms. It was a stark contrast to the sterile modern apartments she was used to. This place had character. Setting down a box labeled kitchen stuff, she turned to Mr. Henderson, who was lingering by the door, a clipboard in his hands. "It's perfect, Mr. Henderson. It's like stepping into another time." Mr. Henderson offered a tentative smile, the lines on his face deepening. "Glad to hear it, Miss Marlowe. Just remember, this old building has its quirks, and the tenants, well, they tend to come and go rather quickly." Alice laughed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I'm not planning on going anywhere. This feels like home." As Mr. Henderson left, closing the door behind him with a gentle click, Alice wandered through the apartment. Her footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors, the sound mingling with the soft murmur of the city outside. She imagined where her furniture would go, how her books would look on the shelves, and where she'd hang her collection of vintage movie posters. It was in the bedroom, a cozy space with a large window overlooking the bustling street below, that she found the first sign of the apartment's mysterious past. A painting hung on the wall, its frame slightly askew. The image was a curious, abstract swirl of colors, mesmerizing and a bit unsettling. She reached out, straightening the frame, and felt a shiver run down her spine. "This place has stories," she murmured to herself, a sense of anticipation building within her. Later that evening, as Alice unpacked her belongings, she discovered a peculiar, intricately carved box hidden in the back of a closet. It was locked, no key in sight, but it piqued her curiosity. The next day, she mentioned it to Mr. Henderson. "Oh, that old thing?" He scratched his head, looking uncomfortable. "Belonged to the previous tenant, a strange fellow, kept to himself mostly. You're welcome to it if you can open it." Back in her apartment, Alice examined the box closely. There was something compelling about it, almost as if it was calling to her. With a bit of tinkering, the lock clicked open, revealing its contents. A stack of photographs and letters, and beneath them, a small, leather-bound journal. The journal belonged to Jacob Wentworth, the reclusive artist Mr. Henderson had mentioned. As Alice flipped through the pages, she was drawn into Wentworth's world. His writings were frenzied, filled with ramblings about the afterlife and his attempts to create something that would open the door to what lies beyond. Alice couldn't tear her eyes away from Wentworth's words, his obsession with bridging the gap between life and death, his conviction that art could be a conduit to the afterlife. It was unsettling, yet undeniably fascinating. "I need to know more," Alice whispered to the empty room. Wentworth's passion, his madness, it was alluring. She felt a deep, inexplicable desire to understand, to uncover the truth behind his work and his disappearance. Her investigation began with a visit to a local art gallery, known for its collection of eccentric pieces. The curator, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, raised an eyebrow when Alice mentioned Wentworth's name. Jacob Wentworth? His work was controversial, brilliant to some, madness to others. Why the interest? Alice leaned in, her voice low. "I'm living in his old apartment. Found some of his things. I think there's more to his story." The curator studied her for a moment, then sighed. "Follow me." As they walked through the gallery, Alice felt a growing sense of anticipation. She was about to dive into a mystery that promised to unravel the fabric of reality itself. The curator led Alice to a secluded section of the gallery, where the air seemed to thicken with a mix of dust and secrecy. She stopped in front of a painting that made Alice's heart skip a beat, a swirling, chaotic landscape that seemed to pulsate with an eerie life of its own. "This is one of Wentworth's," the curator said, her voice tinged with a mix of respect and fear. "He donated it to the gallery shortly before he disappeared." Alice leaned in, her eyes tracing the tumultuous patterns. "It's like it's alive," she whispered, half to herself. The curator nodded. Many said Wentworth's work was more than mere paint on canvas. He believed he could capture the essence of the afterlife, or perhaps even create a portal to it. A portal? Alice's mind raced with the implications. How did he plan to do that? No one knows for sure. He became increasingly reclusive, obsessed with his work. Then one day he was just gone. Alice's thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and fascination. The idea of art as a bridge to another realm was both terrifying and compelling. She thanked the curator and left the gallery, her mind ablaze with questions. Her next stop was the city's archives. Buried in the dimly lit, musty rows of shelving, she found old newspaper clippings about Wentworth, his exhibitions, and the mixed reactions from the public and critics alike. But it was a small, nearly forgotten article that caught her attention. Local artist claims breakthrough in afterlife communication. According to the article, Wentworth had been working on a project that he claimed would change the way we understand reality. The details were vague, but Alice felt a chill run down her spine. Wentworth had been on the verge of something monumental, something dangerous. Armed with this new information, Alice returned to her apartment, a sense of unease settling over her. She looked at the artwork she had found, the journal, the strange abstract painting on her wall. Everything seemed to be pieces of a larger puzzle, a puzzle that Wentworth had been desperately trying to solve. That night, her dreams were more vivid than ever. She found herself standing in a landscape eerily similar to Wentworth's paintings, the ground undulating beneath her feet, the sky a swirling maelstrom of colors. Shadowy figures moved in the distance, their forms shifting and changing. "Wake up, Alice." The voice was a whisper, barely audible over the howling wind. She turned, searching for the source, but found nothing. "Wake up and see!" Alice awoke with a start, her heart pounding. The apartment was silent, the early morning light casting long shadows across the floor. She knew what she had to do. Over the following weeks, Alice threw herself into Wentworth's world. She studied his journal in detail, deciphering his notes and sketches, trying to understand his methods. She experimented with the placement of the artworks, aligning them according to Wentworth's theories about energy and dimensional planes. Slowly, the apartment began to change. The air vibrated with an unseen energy, and the boundary between dream and reality blurred. Alice found herself seeing things out of the corner of her eye, shapes that vanished when she looked directly at them, whispers that echoed through the rooms, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. She was no longer just living in Wentworth's apartment. She was becoming a part of his obsession, a conduit for his unfinished work. And as she delved deeper, she realized that the key to completing Wentworth's masterpiece lay within the very walls of the apartment itself. One evening, as the boundary between day and night blurred into twilight, Alice found herself in the hidden room once more, surrounded by Wentworth's chaotic symphony of artworks. The air pulsed with a palpable energy, the hairs on her arms standing on end. It was here, among the cacophony of colors and shapes, that she discovered the final piece of Wentworth's puzzle. A canvas hidden behind a false wall, its surface a whirlpool of dark hues that seemed to suck the light from the room. "This is it," Alice breathed, her voice a mix of awe and fear. She carefully removed the canvas, placing it on the easel that stood in the center of the room, as if waiting for this very moment. As the canvas settled into place, the room shifted. The air thickened, and the paintings on the walls began to glow, their colors bleeding into the space around them. Alice stepped back, her heart racing. She'd found Wentworth's masterpiece, the key to his portal, but at what cost? The world around her began to warp, the walls of the apartment bending and stretching in impossible ways. From the canvas, a light emerged, growing brighter, illuminating the room with an otherworldly glow. Alice could hear a voice now, a whisper that seemed to come from the light itself. "Complete the work," it urged, a voice filled with longing and despair. She knew then what she had to do. Wentworth had left one final piece unfinished, not out of choice, but because he had lacked the final, crucial element, himself, his essence. And now, Alice stood in his place, the unwitting heir to his life's obsession. With trembling hands, she approached the canvas, the colors swirling before her eyes. "I'm sorry, Jacob," she whispered. "I hope you found your peace." Closing her eyes, Alice reached out, her fingers brushing the surface of the canvas. The moment she made contact, a surge of energy coursed through her, a torrent of visions flooding her mind, of other worlds, other realities, all converging on this single point. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. The light receded, the room settled, and Alice found herself alone, standing in the silent apartment. But something had changed. She could feel it. A part of her, her essence, had been absorbed by the canvas, completing Wentworth's work, but at a price she had not fully understood. The days that followed were a blur of shadows and whispers. Alice found herself caught between worlds, her nights filled with dreams that were not dreams, where she walked the landscapes of Wentworth's paintings, now part of the very fabric of his creations. She had opened the door that Wentworth had sought, but in doing so, she had lost a part of herself. The apartment, once a place of comfort, now felt like a prison, its walls echoing with the remnants of her sacrifice. One morning, as she prepared to leave the apartment for the last time, Alice paused in the doorway, looking back at the space that had changed her life forever. "I hope it was worth it, Jacob," she said softly, her voice carrying a weight of sadness and resignation. "I hope you found what you were looking for." With that, she stepped out into the sunlight, leaving the apartment and its secrets behind. But as she walked away, a part of her remained, trapped within the canvas, a testament to her curiosity, her bravery, and the heavy price she had paid. Alice's return to the world outside Wentworth's apartment was marked by a profound sense of dislocation. The city she had once navigated with ease now seemed foreign, its streets echoing with the memories of her recent experiences. She sought refuge in the familiar, a small cafe she frequented before her life had become entwined with the mysteries of the afterlife. Sitting at her usual table, she cradled a cup of coffee, its warmth a stark contrast to the chill that had settled in her bones. The chatter around her, once comforting, now sounded distant, as if she were separated from the rest of the world by an invisible veil. "You all right, Alice?" The cafe owner, a kindly man named George, approached with a look of concern. "You've got that look, like you've seen a ghost." Alice managed a weak smile. "Something like that, George. Just been through a lot lately." "Well, you know this place is always here for you. Sometimes, a bit of the old familiar is what we need to find our feet again." His words, simple and sincere, struck a chord within her. Alice nodded, her resolve strengthening. It was time to rebuild, to find a new normal in the aftermath of her ordeal. In the weeks that followed, Alice found herself moving through life with a newfound appreciation for the mundane. The colors of the sunset, the laughter of friends, the quiet moments of solitude. Each held a depth of beauty and meaning she had never fully appreciated. Yet the change within her was undeniable. She carried with her the knowledge of the thin veils between realities, a wisdom bought with a piece of her soul. Her experience had grounded her, yes, but it had also opened her eyes to the mysteries that lay just beyond the edge of perception. One evening, as she walked home through the city, she passed by the old apartment building. She stopped, looking up at the window of what was once her home. "I'm not the same person who walked through that door," she murmured, a sense of peace enveloping her. "But maybe that's okay." With a final glance at the window, Alice turned and walked away, her steps light, ready to face whatever came next with courage and a heart open to the endless possibilities of existence. Well, my ghoulish guests, it seems Alice found herself a lease on another dimension, but at a cost that was more than just her security deposit. If this tale has painted a shiver down your spine, leave us a comment below. Did Alice's journey leave you craving more, or are you content with the safety of your own, less haunted abode?